Welcome, dreamer, to DreamSleep Studios. Here, we craft stories designed to guide you softly into rest, where curiosity meets calm, and learning becomes a lullaby. Tonight, we journey together to a world unlike any other. A moon called Pandora, suspended in the distant reaches of space, where bioluminescent forests glow beneath alien stars and every living thing pulses with connection. So settle in, let your breathing slow, and allow these gentle facts to carry you away like floating seeds on a warm breeze. Let us begin our dreamy voyage. Fact 1. Avatar, the film that would become the highest-grossing movie of all time for nearly a decade, was born from a dream that James Cameron had been nurturing since the 1990s. He first wrote an 80-page treatment for the story in 1994, but the technology to bring his vision to life simply didn't exist yet. So he waited. Like a seed beneath the soil, the idea remained dormant, gathering strength in the darkness, waiting for the right moment to bloom. Patience, you see, can be its own kind of magic. Sometimes the most beautiful things require us to wait until the world is ready to receive them. Fact 2. The name Pandora itself carries layers of meaning that ripple outward like waves in still water. In Greek mythology, Pandora was the first human woman, created by the gods and given a box she was told never to open. When curiosity overcame her, she released all the evils into the world, but hope remained inside. Cameron chose this name deliberately, for his Pandora moon is both a paradise and a warning, a place of breathtaking beauty that humans threaten to destroy. It's a reminder that even in places of wonder, we carry the capacity for both harm and hope, locked together in the same vessel. Fact 3. Pandora orbits a gas giant planet called Polyphemus, which itself orbits Alpha Centauri A real star system approximately 4.37 light-years from Earth. This means that if you could travel at the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second, faster than anything we know, it would still take over 4 years to reach this distant world. Imagine that journey. For years of traveling through the silent void, watching our sun shrink to just another point of light among countless others. In that vastness, you might understand how small we are, and yet how connected we remain to everything we've ever known. Fact 4. The indigenous people of Pandora, the Nausicaa, stand approximately 10 feet tall, their bodies lean and elegant, adapted perfectly to their world's lower gravity. Their blue skin isn't merely aesthetic. It echoes the bioluminescence that surrounds them, allowing them to blend with their glowing forest home. Evolution on any world is a conversation between beings and their environment, a slow dance lasting millions of years. The Nausicaa's appearance tells the story of that dance, each feature a verse in a poem written by time itself. Fact 5. Every Nausicaa has a queue, a neural braid that extends from the base of their skull, protected within their hair. This isn't simply hair or decoration. It's a living extension of their nervous system, ending in delicate tendrils that allow them to form a direct neural connection called sahelu with other creatures. Through this bond, they can link with their flying banshees, their dire horses, even with the trees themselves. Imagine knowing another being so completely, feeling their heartbeat as your own, their emotions flowing through you like water. It's connection beyond words, beyond the barriers that so often keep us separate and alone. Fact 6. The entire ecosystem of Pandora is networked together through the roots of the home tree and other sacred places, forming what the Gnostics call Iwa, a biological neural network spanning the entire moon. Scientists in the film compare it to the synapses in a human brain, with each tree acting like a neuron, storing memories and consciousness itself. In a way, the forest remembers. Every creature that has ever lived, every story ever told, becomes part of this living archive. It's a beautiful thought, isn't it? That nothing is ever truly lost, that the forest holds every moment gently, the way you might cup water in your hands. Fact 7. James Cameron spent years developing the Gnostics language with linguist Dr. Paul Frommer, who created a fully functional alien language with its own grammar, syntax, and over 1,000 words. The actors learned to speak it phonetically, their mouths forming sounds that had never existed before in human history. There's something profound about creating an entirely new way to communicate. It reminds us that language itself is an invention, a bridge we build between the islands of our individual minds. And every word in Gnostics was crafted to reflect their culture, their values, their way of seeing the world as sacred and interconnected. Fact 8. The film took over 4 years to make, with Cameron and his team developing entirely new motion capture technology to bring the Gnostics to life. The actors performed in a special studio wearing suits covered in markers, their every movement translated into their 9-foot-tall blue avatars. But more than just their movements, the technology could capture the smallest facial expressions. A slight narrowing of the eyes, the subtle lift of an eyebrow, the gentle curve of a smile. This level of detail meant that the humanity of the performances shone through entirely, reminding us that beneath any surface, no matter how different, beats a heart we can recognize as kin. Fact 9. The floating Hallelujah Mountains of Pandora, those magnificent stone islands that drift through the sky, exist because of a rare mineral called unobtainium, which is found in massive deposits beneath the surface. This room temperature superconductor disrupts magnetic fields so powerfully that it causes the mountains themselves to levitate. While this is science fiction, it's rooted in real physics, in the strange and wonderful behaviors of magnetic fields. It's a reminder that our universe is already full of magic, full of phenomena that would seem impossible until we understand them. Those floating mountains are a dream made visible, a metaphor for how wonder can lift us above the ordinary ground of our everyday lives. Fact 10. Avatar was released in December 2009, and within weeks, people around the world began reporting a phenomenon that psychologists would later call post-Avatar depression syndrome. Viewers felt a profound sadness leaving the theater, a longing for Pandora's beauty, a grief that Earth wasn't as vibrant and connected as the world they'd just witnessed. While not a clinical diagnosis, this emotional response speaks to something deep within us, a yearning for meaning, for connection, for belonging to something larger than ourselves. Perhaps that's what all the best stories do. They remind us of what we're missing, and in that reminder, they whisper that such beauty might still be possible, if only we can dream it into being. And with that, dear dreamer, we complete our first 10 facts, our first gentle steps into this world of wonder. Let your breath deepen, let your muscles soften, and allow yourself to drift like those floating mountains, weightless, peaceful, suspended between waking and dreams. There are still 110 more facts waiting to unfold. But for now, simply rest in what you've learned, and let Pandora's beauty carry you towards sleep. And so our journey continues, deeper into the forests of Pandora, where every leaf holds a secret and every creature tells a story written in bioluminescent light. Fact 11. The bioluminescence that makes Pandora glow at night isn't merely beautiful. It serves a purpose woven into the very fabric of life on this moon. In Earth's oceans, creatures light up to attract mates, to lure prey, or to communicate in the darkness where sunlight cannot reach. On Pandora, this same principle has evolved on land, creating a world where nightfall doesn't bring darkness but transformation. The Gnostics themselves bear these glowing patterns on their skin, unique as fingerprints, revealing themselves fully only when the sun sets. It's as if the moon saves its true face for the quiet hours, for those patient enough to wait and observe. In this way, Pandora teaches us that some beauty can only be witnessed by those willing to sit with the darkness. Fact 12. The Tree of Souls, the most sacred place in Gnostics culture, stands as a massive willow-like tree with hanging tendrils that glow with pink and purple light. When the Gnostics connect their cues to these tendrils, they can access the memories and wisdom of their ancestors, even communicate with those who have passed into Iwa. Imagine having such a place, where death is not an ending but a transformation, where those we've loved remain accessible, their voices still offering guidance. This concept mirrors beliefs found in cultures across our own world. The Aboriginal Australian Dreamtime, the Buddhist concept of interdependent existence, the African philosophy of Ubuntu. Perhaps every human culture has sensed this same truth, that we are never truly separate, never truly alone, but part of an endless, flowing conversation between past, present, and future. Fact 13. Jake Sully, our human protagonist, was not the original choice for the Avatar program mission. He's brought in only because his twin brother, a trained scientist, was killed, and Jake shares his DNA. The only way he can use the expensive Avatar body that had been grown specifically for his brother. So Jake arrives on Pandora as a replacement, a stand-in, someone occupying a space meant for another. How many of us have felt this way at times? Like we're filling shoes too large for us, walking paths we hadn't planned to walk? Yet sometimes it's precisely when we step into spaces we never expected that we discover who we truly are. Jake's journey reminds us that destiny often arrives disguised as accident, and purpose finds us even when we're not looking for it. Fact 14. The Avatar bodies themselves represent an extraordinary achievement, a hybrid genetic creation combining human DNA with Gnostic's genetics. Growing one takes years and costs millions of dollars, a body cultivated in tanks like some strange blue flower blooming in controlled conditions. When Jake first links with his avatar and wakes up with a Gnostic's body, his first action is to run, to test his legs after years of paralysis, to feel strength flooding through limbs that can carry him again. That moment, pure joy at simply being able to move, reminds us how much we take for granted. The miracle of our bodies working, of muscles responding to thought, of breath flowing in and out without effort. Sometimes it takes losing something, or seeing it through new eyes, to remember how precious it always was. Fact 15. The neural link technology that allows humans to control their avatars from inside a special pod works through a sophisticated brain-computer interface. The human operator lies down, the machine reads their neural patterns, and consciousness itself seems to transfer across the room into the hybrid body. When they disconnect, they wake in their human form as if from sleep, sometimes disoriented about which body is truly theirs. This blurring of identity raises questions philosophers have pondered for millennia. What makes you you? Is it your body, your memories, your consciousness? If your mind could inhabit a different form, would you still be yourself? The avatar technology suggests that the essence of who we are exists somehow beyond flesh and bone. A thought both unsettling and oddly comforting as we drift towards sleep, our own consciousness preparing to voyage through dreams. Fact 16. Neytiri, the Gnostics princess who becomes Jake's teacher and eventually his love, was originally voiced and performed by actress Zoe Saldana. Saldana spent months learning archery, horseback riding, and martial arts to portray Neytiri's grace and warrior strength. She studied the movements of big cats, panthers, and jaguars to capture that blend of elegance and barely contained power. Even though her body would be transformed by technology into a 9-foot-tall blue alien, every gesture, every expression, every moment of vulnerability or ferocity came from Saldana's human performance. This reminds us that authentic emotion transcends appearance. The technology was merely a brush. The art came from the human heart beneath. When Neytiri mourns, when she laughs, when she loves, we recognize those feelings as our own because they are translated across species, across worlds, across the barrier between real and imagined, but fundamentally, eternally human. Fact 17. The Banshees, those magnificent flying creatures the Gnostics call Ikran, were designed to look simultaneously beautiful and dangerous, with pterodactyl-like wings spanning several meters, bright colors warning of their predatory nature, and that characteristic cry that echoes through Pandora's mountains. But here's the remarkable detail. Once a Gnostic's warrior bonds with a banshee, creating Tsahelu for the first time, that bond lasts for life. The banshee will never accept another rider, and the Gnostics will never bond with another Ikran. It's a partnership, a marriage of sorts, built on absolute trust. Imagine knowing that one leap of faith, that first connection, creates an unbreakable bond that will carry you through your entire life. There's something reassuring about such permanence in our world of temporary things, something that whispers that true connection, once made, becomes unshakable. Fact 18. The home tree where Neytiri's clan lives stands over 900 feet tall, about the height of a 70-story building, and houses the entire Omaticea clan within its massive hollow trunk. Families make their homes among the roots and along the spiraling pathways carved into the living wood, their hammocks swaying gently, their fires kept small and respectful. The tree provides everything: shelter, connection to Iwa, a gathering place, a cathedral. It's lived in for generations, its wood worn smooth by countless hands, its songs echoing with centuries of voices. When we learn that humans later destroy this tree, the tragedy resonates not just because of the lives lost, but because of time itself being severed. All those memories, all those generations, all that history crashing down. It reminds us how quickly we can destroy what took lifetimes to build, and how careful we must be with living things that hold more stories than we can imagine. Fact 19. James Cameron has said that Pandora represents what Earth might have been like millions of years ago, or what it could evolve into under different circumstances. The dinosaurs never died out on Pandora. They evolved into new forms, including the massive hammerhead Titanothere, the viper wolves, and the ultimate apex predator, the great Leonopteryx, or Tauric as the Gnostics call it. These creatures showcase evolution's nature's endless experimentation with form and function. but they also serve as a mirror, showing us what we've lost on our own world. The megafauna that once roamed Earth before humans reshaped everything. There's a melancholy in that reflection, a quiet grief for the wild abundance that used to exist. Yet perhaps that grief serves a purpose too. It reminds us what's worth protecting, what still remains, and what we might yet save if we choose to care. Fact 20. The entire film runs 162 minutes in its original theatrical version and 178 minutes in its extended cut. That's nearly 3 hours of storytelling, 3 hours of inviting audiences to leave Earth behind and become lost in another world. Cameron structured the film like a symphony, with movements building toward crescendos, quiet moments of beauty balanced against intense action, themes repeating and transforming like musical motifs. He understood something essential, that to make people care about an alien world, you must give them time to fall in love with it, time to learn its rhythms, time to breathe its air and walk its soil until it begins to feel like home. In our hurried world, where everything moves faster and attention spans shorten, Avatar dares to be patient, to let scenes linger, to trust that beauty given time will work its magic. And perhaps that's a lesson for us as we settle into sleep, that some things cannot be rushed, that transformation requires patience. 20 facts now, dear traveler, and you've journeyed deeper into Pandora's embrace. Feel how your body has grown heavier, how your thoughts have begun to drift like seeds on the wind. Let the images of glowing forests and floating mountains fill your mind's eye, and know that there are still 100 more wonders waiting. But for now, simply breathe, simply rest, and let yourself float in this space between waking and dreaming, where stories become real and reality fades gently into the background. Fact 21. When Jake Sully first arrives on Pandora, he's a Marine, trained for combat, accustomed to orders, viewing the world through a soldier's eyes where everything divides neatly into threats and assets, allies and enemies. But Pandora refuses such simple categories. The forest that seems hostile at first reveals itself as protective. The creatures that appear monstrous become guides. And the people he was sent to help displace become his teachers, his family, his reason for living. This transformation didn't happen in an instant. It unfolded gradually, like dawn spreading across a dark landscape. Change, real change, works this way. Not through sudden revelation, but through countless small moments of opening, of allowing ourselves to be taught by what we thought we already understood. Jake's journey reminds us that the strongest person is not the one who refuses to change, but the one brave enough to let their certainties dissolve. Fact 22. The name Nausicaa comes from the word native, but also echoes naive, a dual meaning Cameron intended. From the human perspective, the Nausicaa seem primitive, lacking technology, living simply in their forest. But as the story unfolds, we discover they possess something the humans have lost, a direct, unmediated connection to their world and to each other. Their neural bonds aren't metaphorical, they're literal, physical, real. So who, the film asks, is truly naive? Those who live in harmony with their world, or those who destroy the ground beneath their feet while calling it progress? Sometimes what we dismiss as simplicity is actually wisdom we've forgotten, knowledge we abandoned in our rush toward complexity. The Nausicaa know where they belong. Can we say the same? Fact 23. Dr. Grace Augustine, the scientist who leads the Avatar program, is a botanist who has spent years studying Pandora's ecosystem. She's the first to understand that the trees are communicating, that the entire forest functions as a network, that Iowa isn't just Nausica's mythology but verifiable biological fact. Sigourney Weaver, who portrayed Grace, brought to the role decades of experience playing strong, intelligent women in science fiction. But Grace is tired, disillusioned, frustrated by bureaucracy and military thinking that reduces wonder to resource extraction. She represents the scientists who see the magic in nature's patterns, who understand that everything connects to everything else, who know that destroying one part tears holes in an interconnected whole. Grace teaches us that knowledge without reverence is hollow, and that the wisest science begins with awe. Fact 24. The humans on Pandora are there for unobtainium, that rare mineral worth millions per kilogram. The name itself is a joke among engineers. Unobtainium being slang for any material that's theoretically perfect but practically impossible to obtain. By naming it this, Cameron highlights the absurdity of the colonial mindset. Traveling light years across space, spending billions of dollars, destroying an entire ecosystem, all for a mineral they literally named after impossibility. It's a dark mirror held up to our own history. The gold rushes, the oil wars, the rubber plantations, the countless times humans have justified devastation by pointing to something precious buried in the ground. The mineral's value is real, but the film asks, at what cost? What price is too high? And who gets to decide when the people paying the price aren't the ones receiving the profit? Fact 25. Colonel Miles Quaritch, the head of security operations, serves as the film's primary antagonist, but Cameron gave him complexity. Quaritch believes he's protecting his people, following orders, doing his duty. He sees Pandora as hostile territory that must be conquered for humanity's survival. In his mind, he's the hero of his own story, defending civilization against savages. This reflects a truth about how conflict actually works. Rarely does anyone wake up thinking they're the villain. Most people, even those causing great harm, believe they're justified, necessary, doing what must be done. Understanding this doesn't excuse Quaritch's actions, but it illuminates how easily we can convince ourselves that violence serves a greater good. The scar across his face, a constant reminder of Pandora's dangers, keeps him locked in an adversarial relationship with the world around him, unable to see beauty, only threat. Fact 26. The courtship between Jake and Neytiri follows the classical pattern of the reluctant teacher and the eager student, but it deepens into something more profound. Neytiri initially sees Jake as a baby, ignorant and clumsy, stumbling through the forest like a child learning to walk. But she agrees to teach him because Iowa sent her signs, the wood sprites, sacred seeds of the Tree of Souls, that landed on Jake like blessings. She trusts not Jake himself, but the world's judgment of him. And slowly, as Jake learns to see, to hear, to move through the forest with respect rather than force, she begins to see him differently. Love, the film suggests, grows from truly witnessing another person. Not who you wish they were, not who they appear to be, but who they become when given the chance to transform. Their relationship blooms slowly, carefully, rooted in trust earned through countless small moments of vulnerability and growth. Fact 27. The language of Pandora extends beyond words into gesture and ritual. When the Nausicaa greet each other, they say, Olngadi Kami, I see you. Not I see in the physical sense, but I see into you, I understand you, I acknowledge your full existence. It's a greeting that demands presence, attention, genuine connection. How different from our casual hello or how are you? Questions we ask without expecting real answers. The Gnostic's way of seeing requires us to slow down, to look beyond surface and into soul, to treat every encounter as sacred. This philosophy of seeing becomes central to Jake's transformation. He must learn not just to look at Pandora, but to truly see it. And perhaps that's what falling asleep requires too. Learning to stop merely observing our thoughts and instead truly seeing them, acknowledging them without judgment, letting them pass like clouds across a sky we've finally learned to notice. Fact 28. The film's production design team studied countless indigenous cultures from around the world. Native American tribes, Maori communities, Aboriginal Australian groups, African societies, to create the Gnostic's culture with respect and depth. They wanted to avoid creating a generic, primitive people and instead show a sophisticated society with its own art, music, rituals, and wisdom traditions. The Gnostics' clothes, jewelry, body paint, and hairstyles all carry meaning. Nothing is arbitrary. Their architecture works with nature rather than against it. Their economy isn't based on accumulation, but on reciprocity. This attention to cultural detail challenges the notion that technological simplicity equals intellectual simplicity. The Gnostics remind us that sophistication can mean living well with less, that advancement might mean deepening connection rather than multiplying possessions, and that perhaps the most evolved societies are those that have learned to belong to their world instead of trying to own it. Fact 29. One of the most visually stunning sequences in the film is Jake and Neytiri's flight through the Hallelujah Mountains, weaving between floating rocks, through waterfalls that pour from islands suspended in the sky. This scene serves no plot purpose. It exists purely for wonder, purely to let us soar through impossible beauty. Cameron knew that audiences needed these moments. Not just action, not just dialogue, but pure visual poetry that takes the breath away. It's a reminder that efficiency isn't everything, that some experiences cannot be summarized or fast-forwarded, that sometimes we need to simply be present in beauty and let it wash over us. These moments of pause, of flight, of witnessing magnificence without agenda, they're what make the film breathable, what give weight to the action by balancing intensity with grace. Just as music needs silence between notes to become melody, stories need these quiet moments of beauty to become meaningful. Fact 30. As Jake spends more time in his avatar body, he begins to prefer it to his human form. He rushes through his video logs, impatient to return to Pandora's forests, to his life among the Gnostics. His human body becomes the dream, and his Gnostic's body becomes the reality. This inversion happens gradually, so gradually that Jake himself barely notices until he's already crossed over. It speaks to how we become what we practice, how we grow into the lives we choose to inhabit. If we spend our days in work we love, surrounded by people who nourish us, in places that feel like home, then that becomes our reality, and everything else fades to background. But it also warns us. We can lose ourselves in escape, in fantasy, in anything that feels better than the life we're living. The question becomes not whether we can transform, but whether our transformation leads us toward truth or away from it. Jake's journey happens to lead toward awakening, toward seeing more clearly. But the film doesn't shy away from showing how easily the line between enlightenment and escapism can blur. 30 facts behind us now, dear dreamer, and you've traveled far. Your breathing has slowed, Your body has surrendered its weight to the surface beneath you, and your mind has begun to wander the paths between thought and dream. The boundary between you and the story has grown thin, transparent, almost invisible. Let it dissolve completely. Let yourself become part of Pandora's forest, a leaf among leaves, breathing with the world, connected to everything through invisible threads of awareness. 90 facts still wait ahead, but they will come in their own time, at their own pace. And for now, all you need to do is rest in this moment, this breath, this soft and gentle now. Fact 31. To become one of the Gnostics, Jake must complete his Ignomia, a rite of passage where he climbs the floating mountains to bond with his own banshee. The climb itself is treacherous, requiring trust in every handhold, every leap. But the true test comes at the rookery, where hundreds of banshees nest. Jake must choose one, and that banshee must choose him back. It's not capture or domination, but mutual recognition, a moment where two beings see each other and decide to trust completely. This mirrors how all meaningful relationships form, not through force, but through that mysterious moment when two paths cross and both say yes. Fact 32. The first time Jake makes Tsahelu with his banshee, the connection overwhelms him. He feels the creature's heartbeat, its fear, its wild instinct to flee. For a moment, they struggle, two nervous systems trying to synchronize, two wills trying to become one. Then something shifts. The fear dissolves into exhilaration, and suddenly they're moving together, thinking together, flying as a single being. This is trust at its most fundamental, opening yourself completely to another, allowing their experience to flow through you, becoming vulnerable enough that boundaries dissolve. In our human world, we glimpse this in rare moments, holding hands with someone you love, singing in harmony, dancing with a partner who anticipates your every move. The Gnostics simply made literal what we know metaphorically. That true connection requires opening channels we usually keep closed. Fact 33. Neytiri's father, Itukin, leads the Omatikea clan with quiet strength, while her mother, Emoat, serves as Tsahik, the spiritual leader who interprets Iwa's will. This separation of political and spiritual authority creates balance. Itukin makes decisions about hunting, defense, and daily life, but Emoat determines what those decisions mean in the larger web of existence. She reads signs, performs rituals, maintains the sacred knowledge passed down through generations. Together, they represent two ways of knowing: the practical and the mystical, the immediate and the eternal. Perhaps wisdom requires both, attending to today's needs while remembering we're part of a story much larger than ourselves. Fact 34. The Gnostics don't have a written language. Their knowledge passes orally, through songs and stories, through direct experience and neural connection with Iwa's network. At first, this seems limiting. How can you preserve complex information without writing it down? But the Gnostics would ask, what's lost when knowledge lives only on pages, divorced from voice, from presence, from the living moment? Their way of remembering requires relationship, requires gathering, requires the young to sit with the old and listen. Nothing can be hoarded. Everything must be shared to survive. And memories stored in Iwa never fade or corrupt. They remain perfect, accessible, alive. Sometimes what looks like limitation reveals itself as a different kind of abundance. Fact 35. Jake's final test before becoming Gnostics is to tame a Pali, a dire horse, a creature somewhat like Earth's horses but with 6 legs and bioluminescent patterns along its flanks. The bonding happens through tsahelu again, that neural connection that turns two beings into partners. Once bonded, Jake learns to ride not through commands but through shared intention. He thinks about moving, and the Polly responds, their bodies coordinating in fluid grace. This relationship with animals, built on neural empathy rather than domination, transforms what we might call taming into something closer to friendship. The Gnostics never break their animal spirits. They join with them, creating partnerships where both beings remain whole. Fact 36. During his training, Jake learns to hunt, but hunting for the Gnostics is a sacred act, never casual or cruel. Before taking a life, they ask permission. After the kill, they perform a ritual, thanking the animal for its sacrifice, acknowledging the life given so that they might live. They waste nothing. They take only what they need. This isn't sentimentality. It's recognition that every death diminishes the world, even when necessary. The Gnostics understand what industrial cultures have forgotten, that we're not separate from the food chain but woven into it, that every meal represents a life given, and gratitude is the only honest response. In this way, even eating becomes prayer. Fact 37. The Gnostics measure time differently than humans. They don't count minutes or hours, but move with Pandora's natural rhythms. The cycle of light and darkness, the seasons of growth and rest, the migrations of herds. They have no word for schedule or deadline. Time isn't something to manage or save or waste. It simply flows, and they flow with it. Imagine living that way, responding to hunger when it comes, sleeping when tired, working when the work needs doing, resting when rest calls. Our human obsession with measuring time, dividing it into smaller and smaller units, might make us productive, but what has it cost us? The Gnostics remind us that there's another way, to let time carry us like a river, trusting that everything will unfold as it should. Fact 38. When Jake finally completes his trials and is accepted as one of the people, the clan celebrates with music and dance around the fire. The Gnostics' music involves drums, flutes, voices rising in harmonies that seem to echo the forest itself. They dance not as performance, but as prayer, as celebration, as communion. Their bodies move together, synchronized without rehearsal, each person both individual and part of the collective rhythm. This is culture at its most essential. Not rules or hierarchies, but shared joy, shared story, shared movement. In these moments, they're not just individuals who happen to live together. They become one living organism, each person a cell in a larger body, separate and together simultaneously. Fact 39. On the night of his acceptance, Jake and Neytiri mate before Iwa, bonding not just physically but through tsahelu, their cues connecting, their nervous systems joining. The film treats this moment with reverence rather than explicit detail, understanding that some intimacies are too sacred to expose. But the implication is profound. Imagine lovemaking where you literally feel your partner's pleasure as your own, where boundaries between self and other dissolve completely, where two become one not just metaphorically but neurologically. It's the ultimate vulnerability, the ultimate trust. And afterward, they're mated for life, not because of law or social pressure, but because once you've known someone that completely, how could you ever truly separate? Fact 40. Jake's video log entries, recorded throughout his journey, serve as the film's narrative spine. His human self reflecting on his transformation, watching himself change, gradually realizing he can't go back to who he was. These confessional moments add intimacy to the epic spectacle, reminding us that every grand adventure is ultimately personal, lived one heartbeat at a time by someone trying to make sense of their changing world. As Jake's logs grow more conflicted, we watch him grapple with divided loyalty, with love for two worlds pulling him in opposite directions. These quiet moments of self-reflection give the story its soul, reminding us that the most important journeys happen inside, in the private space where we decide who we'll become. 40 facts now complete, and you've witnessed Jake's transformation from stranger to belonging. Your own body has transformed too, muscles loose, breath slow, mind drifting like smoke. 80 facts remain, but they feel distant now, like mountains beyond mountains. For now, simply float in this quiet space, this gentle darkness, where stories and sleep intertwine. But peace, like all things in nature, moves in cycles. And now we arrive at the moment when two worlds collide. Fact 41. The human's plan is simple and brutal. Destroy the home tree to access the massive unobtainium deposit beneath it. They give the Gnostics time to evacuate, as if this makes the destruction merciful, as if offering people time to abandon everything they've ever known somehow absolves the act. Colonel Quaritch sees it as a tactical necessity, an acceptable loss in service of the mission. But what he doesn't understand, what he refuses to understand, is that you cannot separate the Gnostics from their home. The tree isn't just shelter, it's history, memory, connection to ancestors and to Iwa herself. Destroying it doesn't just displace people, it severs them from everything that gives life meaning. This mirrors countless real-world tragedies. Every time empire has demanded that indigenous people simply move, as if home were interchangeable, as if sacred ground were just geography. Fact 42. Jake is caught between worlds when the attack is planned. He's fallen in love with Neytiri, been accepted by the clan, become truly Gnostics in his heart. But his human body remains in the compound vulnerable, dependent on the very people planning destruction. Grace urges him to warn the Gnostics, to choose a side, but Jake hesitates. He wants to believe he can bridge the gap, negotiate peace, find a solution where both sides win. It's a beautiful hope and a naive one. Some conflicts have no middle ground. Some moments demand we choose. Jake's hesitation isn't weakness, but very human. The desire to avoid rupture, to keep everyone happy, to not betray anyone. But neutrality, the film suggests, becomes its own kind of betrayal when one side holds all the power and the other faces annihilation. Fact 43. When the humans attack the home tree with missiles and fire, the sequence is devastating not just for its violence, but for what it destroys. We've spent an hour learning to love this place, walking its spiraling paths, watching light filter through its leaves, seeing families gathered around evening fires. We know this tree is home, and then in minutes it falls. The Gnostics' screams as their world collapses carry the sound of every refugee, every displaced person, every community watching their home burn, while those with greater weapons claim it was necessary. Neytiri's father dies in the collapse, crushed beneath the weight of his own home. The film doesn't look away from this loss. It makes us feel the specific weight of it, the particular grief of a daughter losing her father, a people losing their leader, a world losing its center. Fact 44. In the aftermath of the home tree's destruction, the Gnostics discovered Jake's true mission, that he was sent to gather intelligence, to convince them to leave peacefully so the humans could mine in peace. The betrayal cuts deeper than the attack itself because trust, once broken, shatters completely. Neytiri looks at Jake with such hurt, such disbelief, and he has no defense except the truth. He did betray them, even though he didn't mean to, even though he changed, even though he loves her. Intentions don't undo consequences. The harm happened regardless of his heart. This moment teaches a hard lesson about redemption. That saying sorry isn't enough, that claiming you've changed doesn't erase what you've done, that those you've hurt have no obligation to forgive you just because you wish they would. Fact 45. Jake's human body is expelled from the compound, left unconscious in the forest, vulnerable to Pandora's predators and elements. It's a strange mercy. Quaritch could have killed him, but instead simply removed him from the board, let nature decide his fate. This liminal space, between human and Gnostics, belonging fully to neither world, reflects Jake's internal state. He's gone too far to return to his human identity, but been rejected by his adopted people. In this space of absolute loss, stripped of both homes, he must find within himself a reason to continue. Sometimes transformation requires total dissolution first. Everything we were must fall away before something new can emerge. Jake, lying unconscious between worlds, represents that moment we all face eventually, when every identity we've claimed falls apart and we must discover who we are underneath all the masks. Fact 46. Grace is shot during the escape from the compound, the bullet tearing through her avatar body, her human body also dying in sympathy as the connection between them shorts out. She's carried to the Tree of Souls, where Emoad attempts to permanently transfer Grace's consciousness into her avatar through Iwa's power. The ritual is beautiful and desperate. The entire clan gathering, voices rising in prayer, tendrils of the sacred tree connecting to Grace's body as bioluminescence pulses like a heartbeat. But Grace is too far gone. She dies, but not before gasping in wonder at something she sees, some glimpse of Iwa's true nature. Her last words, "I'm with her," suggest she found in death what she sought in life. Direct experience of the network, proof that consciousness can exist beyond individual bodies, merged into something vast and eternal. Fact 47. To redeem himself and rally the clans, Jake must accomplish what no Gnostics has done in generations. Bond with Torek, the great Leonopteryx, the apex predator of Pandora's skies. The Torek is massive, brilliant orange and red, with teeth like daggers and a wingspan that blocks the sun. Only 5 Gnostics in history have ever ridden one, each becoming Torek Macto, Rider of Last Shadow, a title that carries legendary weight. Jake's attempt is insane and desperate, leaping from his banshee onto Torek's back mid-flight, connecting his cue before the creature can throw him off or devour him. But he succeeds, and suddenly he's not just Jake Sully, not just a human in a stolen body, but something from prophecy, something the clans cannot ignore. Sometimes redemption requires the impossible, not just apology but transformation so complete that you become something no one, including yourself, thought you could be. Fact 48. Riding Torek, Jake travels to the other Gnostics clans scattered across Pandora, calling them to war. The film shows us glimpses of these other peoples, horse clans, forest clans, clans we never fully meet. All distinct yet recognizably Gnostics, all part of the same larger family. They gather not for conquest or revenge, but for survival, for the defense of everything they hold sacred. This unification across difference, across distance, across the small conflicts that usually divide, represents what becomes possible when threat makes essential things clear. The clans put aside whatever separated them because something larger calls: the defense of the world itself, the protection of Iowa, the refusal to let destruction go unanswered. It's a dream many of us carry, that humanity might someday unite the same way, when the threat becomes undeniable. Fact 49. The Gnostics' preparation for battle is both practical and spiritual. They sharpen weapons, yes, but they also pray, gathering at the Tree of Souls to ask Iowa for help. Jake, still thinking like a human, asks directly for intervention. Send us signs, give us aid, help us fight. But Emoat shakes her head. Iowa doesn't take sides, she explains. Iowa protects only the balance of life. She's not a god who grants wishes, but the living system itself, which tends toward equilibrium, which responds to genuine threat, but doesn't pick favorites among her children. This distinction is crucial. The Gnostics don't worship a deity separate from nature, but recognize nature itself as sacred, as conscious, as deserving of reverence. Their spirituality isn't about escaping the physical world, but about honoring it so completely that physical and spiritual become one. Fact 50. The night before battle, Neytiri forgives Jake. Not because what he did was acceptable, but because she sees who he's become, sees the choice he's made to stand with her people, even knowing he'll likely die. Forgiveness, the film suggests, isn't about forgetting or excusing, but about releasing the weight of anger, choosing to move forward together despite the past. They spend the night at the Tree of Souls, connected, quiet, holding each other in the bioluminescent dark. There's a tenderness to this moment that contrasts sharply with the violence to come. A reminder that even in our worst times, especially in our worst times, we need gentleness, connection, the simple comfort of not being alone. Tomorrow they'll fight. Tonight they simply breathe together, alive, present, grateful for this moment that might be their last. 50 facts behind you now, dear dreamer, and the story has grown heavy with consequence, with loss, with the weight of choices made and choices still to come. But you are safe here, in this soft darkness, where stories cannot hurt you, where every ending is just another kind of beginning. Let the tension flow out with each exhale. Let yourself sink deeper, and trust that even difficult stories carry us toward peace when told in gentle voices. And now we arrive at the great convergence, where all paths meet in fire and fury, where the question of belonging becomes a matter of survival. Fact 51. The battle takes place at the Tree of Souls, humanity's final target. The humans bring overwhelming firepower, gunships, missiles, armored suits, weapons designed for planetary warfare. The Gnostics bring arrows, spears, courage, and intimate knowledge of their world. On paper, it's no contest. Technology against tradition, metal against wood, distance weapons against hand-to-hand combat. But the Gnostics have something the humans lack. They're fighting for home, not for profit. Every Gnostic's warrior knows exactly what they're defending. Specific trees they climbed as children, particular streams where they learned to fish, the precise spot where they first made Sahelu. The humans are fighting for a mineral they can't even pronounce. Motivation matters. Meaning matters. And sometimes the side with less firepower, but more purpose finds strength that statistics cannot predict. Fact 52. Jake leads the aerial assault riding Torek, a symbol rallying the Gnostics' forces. Proof that prophecy can manifest in flesh. But he's still Jake, still making human tactical decisions, still thinking like a marine even in his Gnostic's body. He coordinates attacks, identifies weak points in human defenses, uses his knowledge of military strategy to turn the humans' own logic against them. This dual nature, human mind and Gnostic's body, becomes his advantage. He understands both worlds, speaks both languages, thinks in both patterns. The very thing that made him an outsider, his hybrid nature, becomes precisely what's needed. Sometimes the bridge between worlds, the person who belongs fully to neither side, sees possibilities invisible to those who've never questioned where they stand. Fact 53. Trudy Chacon, the pilot who's been helping Jake and Grace, flies one final mission against her own people. She's a secondary character, but her choice matters enormously. A human deciding that her species is wrong, that loyalty to what's right supersedes loyalty to her own kind. When her helicopter is shot down, when she dies for a cause that isn't biologically hers, she proves that identity is choice, not destiny. We're not bound by birth, by genetics, by which side we started on. We can look at what our people are doing and say, no, I won't be part of this, I choose differently. Trudy's death is quiet compared to the larger battle, but it carries profound weight. The first human to die defending Pandora, refusing to let species determine morality. Fact 54. The tide turns when Iowa finally responds. Not because the Gnostics prayed harder, not as reward for righteousness, but because the destruction reached a threshold that threatened the balance of life itself. Suddenly, Pandora's creatures pour from the forest, Thanators, viper wolves, hammerhead titanotheres, even massive creatures from the deepest jungle, all attacking the humans in coordinated fury. This isn't magic, it's ecology responding to existential threat. The animals sense what the humans cannot, that these invaders threaten not just one clan but the entire living network. Iowa protects balance, and balance means stopping the force that would destroy everything. It's a reminder that nature, when sufficiently provoked, possesses power we forget at our peril. We are not separate from the web of life, and when we tear it badly enough, it responds. Fact 55. Colonel Quaritch, in a massive armored mech suit, fights Jake directly in a confrontation that's both physical and symbolic. Quaritch represents humanity's worst impulses: domination, violence, the belief that might makes right. He's not fighting for survival anymore. He's fighting from ego, from refusal to be beaten by savages, from inability to accept that he might be wrong. His suit bristles with weapons, knives, guns, metal plating. Jake has his body, his bow, his desperation. The fight is brutal and unequal, but Jake's advantage is that he's fighting for love while Quaritch fights from pride. Pride makes you predictable. Love makes you creative, desperate, willing to sacrifice everything. When Neytiri finally kills Quaritch, saving Jake's life, it's love protecting love, the clearest moral logic there is. Fact 56. Jake's human body, vulnerable in its link pod, nearly dies during the battle. The pod is damaged, oxygen leaking out, and Jake begins to suffocate while simultaneously fighting in his avatar form. This dual crisis, dying in one body while fighting in another, creates unbearable tension. Neytiri reaches the pod just in time, breaks it open, and sees Jake's human form for the first time. Small, weak, gasping. She holds the breathing mask to his face, keeping him alive, and in that moment sees both versions of the man she loves. The human body that seems so fragile, so unlike her, and the avatar she knows. Her choice to save him, knowing now the full truth of his hybrid existence, represents acceptance at its most profound, loving not despite difference but inclusive of it, all of it. Fact 57. The battle's aftermath is devastating. Bodies everywhere, Gnostics warriors, human soldiers, animals caught in crossfire. The Tree of Souls survived, but the cost was immense. The Gnostics gather their dead, performing rituals, singing souls back to Iwa. The humans who survived are given a choice: leave Pandora forever or be killed. Most choose to leave. They're loaded onto the returning spaceship, sent back across the light years to a dying Earth they never should have left. Only a handful of humans are allowed to stay. Those who fought alongside the Gnostics, who proved their loyalty, who earned the right to call Pandora home. It's a strange mercy, this exile, both punishment and release. The humans return to their wounded world, carrying memories of paradise lost, of beauty they tried to conquer and instead destroyed. Fact 58. In the film's final sequence, Jake undergoes the ultimate transformation. The Gnostics perform the consciousness transfer ceremony at the Tree of Souls, attempting to permanently move Jake's awareness from his human body into his avatar. It's the same ritual they tried with Grace, but this time it works. Jake's human body dies, and his consciousness awakens fully in his Gnostic's form. The transfer is shown simply, his human eyes closing for the last time, his avatar eyes opening, now golden and alive with permanent presence. In this moment, Jake completes his journey from human to Gnostics, from outsider to insider, from visitor to inhabitant. But more than that, he proves something profound. That identity is not fixed, that we can become something other than what we were born to be. That transformation, when complete enough, becomes irreversible. He cannot return to his human life, even if he wanted to. He is finally and forever home. Fact 59. The film ends not with triumph, but with quiet. Jake's voiceover, now narrating from his Gnostic's perspective, speaks of opening his eyes and seeing his world clearly for the first time. The camera pulls back, showing Pandora from above, forests stretching to horizons, mountains floating in perpetual suspension, clouds drifting across an alien sky. It's peaceful, beautiful, alive. The story concludes not with conquest, but with belonging, not with victory, but with arrival. Jake found what so many of us search for, a place where we fit, a people who accept us, a purpose that makes sense of our suffering. The ending feels less like conclusion and more like beginning. Jake's real life on Pandora is just starting. Everything before was merely prologue. Sometimes the end of one story is simply the doorway into another, larger story that will unfold beyond the frame, in the vast unseen spaces where imagination continues. Fact 60. Avatar earned $2.9 billion at the global box office, becoming the highest-grossing film of all time, a record it held for a decade until Avengers. Endgame briefly surpassed it, before Avatar reclaimed the crown with re-releases. But beyond numbers, it touched something deep in collective consciousness, a yearning for connection, for meaning, for a world still enchanted. People saw it multiple times, not for plot twists, but to return to Pandora, to feel again what it's like to exist in a place where everything matters, where every living thing connects, where home means something sacred. The film became more than entertainment. It became a kind of mirror, showing us what we've lost and what we might still save. And perhaps that's why we're here together now, revisiting this story in the quiet darkness, letting its images and meanings wash over us like gentle waves, reminding us that other worlds exist, in films, in dreams, in the possibilities we carry within ourselves. 60 facts complete, dear traveler, and you've witnessed the full arc of Jake's journey, from broken soldier to whole being, from stranger to homecoming. Your own journey towards sleep has progressed just as far. 60 more facts wait in the distance, but they feel dreamlike now, less like information and more like lullabies. Rest here, in this peaceful space between waking and sleeping, and let Pandora's story blend with your own dreams. And now, dear dreamer, we step back from the story itself and explore the hands that shaped it, the minds that dreamed it, the world that received it. Fact 61. James Cameron conceived Avatar during the production of Titanic in 1995, scribbling ideas between takes, imagining alien forests while orchestrating disaster at sea. He'd always been fascinated by the ocean's mysteries, by underwater worlds where humans don't belong, where we can only visit briefly before returning to air. Pandora extends that fascination upward. Another world where humans are visitors, dependent on technology to survive, fundamentally alien to the environment. Cameron spent years as a deep-sea explorer, diving to the Titanic's wreck, to the Mariana Trench, to places no human had ever seen. That experience of being small in vast spaces, of witnessing beauty that exists whether humans observe it or not, infuses every frame of Avatar. He learned humility in the deep and brought that lesson to the stars. Fact 62. The motion capture technology used in Avatar was revolutionary for its time, but it required something wonderfully human at its core: performance. Sam Worthington, who played Jake, spent months in a warehouse wearing a suit covered in sensors, acting opposite other sensor-suited performers, surrounded by nothing but gray walls and cameras. He had to imagine the forest, the mountains, the banshees. He had to believe in what wasn't there. And somehow, through technology we barely understand, his human expressions, a slight frown, a gentle smile, the way his eyes soften when looking at Neytiri, translated perfectly onto his 9-foot blue avatar. Technology didn't replace humanity. It amplified it, carried it across the bridge between real and imagined until the difference ceased to matter. Fact 63. Zoe Saldana prepared for Neytiri by studying dancers and athletes, people who inhabit their bodies with total awareness. She learned archery until her arms ached, practiced moving like a cat, recorded herself, and watched playback to find the precise balance between human and alien. In interviews, she spoke about finding Neytiri's soul, not in the script's words, but in the spaces between, in how Neytiri stands, breathes, tilts her head when curious. Saldana understood that creating a believable alien means first creating a believable person, someone with history, wounds, hopes, contradictions. Neytiri lives because Saldana refused to play her as exotic or simple, insisting instead on complexity, on dignity, on depth. The blue skin and tail are window dressing. The real performance lives in the eyes, which no amount of technology can fake. Fact 64. The film's score, composed by James Horner, weaves together orchestral grandeur with vocals by Leona Lewis and ethnic instruments from around the world. Horner wanted music that felt both alien and familiar, something that suggested a culture we've never encountered but could somehow understand emotionally. The main theme rises and falls like breath, like wind through trees, like the patient rhythm of a world much older than human civilization. Horner sadly passed away in 2015, but his Avatar score remains. Notes arranged with such care that they can still move us to tears, still transport us to Pandora, still remind us that music is its own kind of universal language, needing no translation because it speaks directly to something beneath words. Fact 65. During production, Cameron created a 350-page Pandorapedia, an encyclopedia of the moon's biology, geology, culture, history. Most of it never appears in the film. He detailed plant reproduction cycles, atmospheric composition, evolutionary lineages of creatures we glimpse for seconds. This obsessive world-building wasn't wasted effort. It gave the film weight, coherence, the feeling that Pandora exists completely, that we're seeing a small window into something vast. Every background detail, every creature, every plant follows consistent rules because Cameron knew those rules, even if audiences never would. This is how you create belief. Not by showing everything, but by knowing everything, so that what you do show carries the gravity of an entire world behind it. Fact 66. The film's environmental message drew both praise and criticism. Some called it preachy, heavy-handed, too obvious in its parallels to Earth's ecological crises. But Cameron never apologized for the message. He'd seen coral reefs dying, forests vanishing, species disappearing, and felt urgency that overrode subtlety. Art doesn't always need to whisper. Sometimes it needs to speak plainly. We're destroying something precious, something we can't rebuild, something that once gone will leave a wound in reality that never heals. Avatar says this loudly, unapologetically, wrapped in enough spectacle that millions heard the message who might never read an environmental report. Perhaps that directness is precisely what some stories require. Not elegant ambiguity, but clear warning, spoken while there's still time to choose differently. Fact 67. The film sparked conversations about representation and the white savior narrative. Jake, a white human man, becoming the prophesied hero of an indigenous people, leading them to victory they supposedly couldn't achieve alone. The criticism is valid and important. Yet the film also complicates this. Jake doesn't save the Nausicaa so much as join them, and ultimate victory comes not from his leadership, but from Iowa's response, from the land itself rising up. Still, centering a human perspective in a story about indigenous survival reflects real-world patterns where marginalized voices get filtered through dominant ones. These conversations matter because stories shape how we see the world, and Avatar's massive reach means its choices ripple outward, influencing countless viewers' first thoughts about colonialism, environmentalism, indigeneity. The film opened doors and revealed problems simultaneously, both worth acknowledging as we drift towards sleep. Fact 68. Avatar was designed for 3D from the beginning, not converted afterward but shot with 3D cameras, every frame composed with depth in mind. Cameron wanted audiences to feel they were on Pandora, not watching it. The 3D wasn't about objects flying at your face, but about creating space you could fall into, forests you could wander, skies you could fly through. In theaters, people reported feeling physically present in the world, experiencing genuine vertigo during flight scenes, reaching out to touch bioluminescent plants that weren't there. This immersion served the story's themes. You can't understand belonging until you feel present, and presence requires more than observation. The technology pursued the same goal as the narrative, making us feel what it means to truly see. Fact 69. The film took 12 years from conception to release. 12 years of Cameron refusing to compromise, insisting technology catch up to vision, waiting until he could make the film properly rather than settle for approximation. 12 years of studios nervous about budgets ballooning past $200 million, past $300 million, wondering if audiences would accept a film with no major human stars, set entirely on an alien world, requiring glasses to watch. Cameron bet everything that if the world felt real enough, if the story resonated deeply enough, audiences would come. And they did, in numbers that shattered records. Sometimes patience proves wisdom. Sometimes refusing to compromise creates something that couldn't exist any other way. The 12-year wait became part of the legend, proof that some visions require time to gestate before they're ready to be born. Fact 70. When Avatar finally premiered in December 2009, it arrived at a specific cultural moment. Economic recession, climate anxiety, wars ongoing, a world feeling increasingly fractured. Perhaps that timing partially explains its success. People needed escape, yes, but more than that, they needed hope. They needed to see a story where connection triumphs over exploitation, where nature fights back and wins, where someone lost finds their way home. Avatar offered a vision of belonging in a time of displacement, of meaning in a time of cynicism, of beauty in a time that felt increasingly ugly. The film became a mirror and a window simultaneously, reflecting our world's problems while showing us a world where those problems hadn't yet won. And maybe that's what all successful myths do. They arrive precisely when we need them most, speaking to hungers we didn't know we carried. 70 facts now rest behind you, and you've journeyed from Pandora's forests into the workshops and minds where those forests were imagined. Your breathing has found its deepest rhythm, your thoughts drift like clouds, and the boundary between story and dream has grown gossamer thin. 50 facts remain, but they feel distant now, like stars at the edge of vision. Rest here in this gentle darkness, and let the remaining journey unfold at its own pace, unhurried, soft as settling snow. And now we drift into the aftermath, the ripples that spread outward from Pandora, touching our world in ways both seen and invisible. Fact 71. In the months following Avatar's release, therapists reported an unusual phenomenon. Patients expressing genuine grief over not being able to visit Pandora, feeling depressed that Earth lacked its magic, struggling to reconcile everyday life with the beauty they'd witnessed on screen. This wasn't dismissed as silly. Psychologists recognized it as a real longing for connection, for meaning, for a world that feels enchanted. We live in an age of disenchantment, where mystery has been explained away, where forests are resources rather than cathedrals, where connection happens through screens rather than touch. Avatar reminded people of hungers they'd learned to ignore, and once awakened, those hungers didn't simply disappear when the credits rolled. Sometimes art doesn't comfort us, it reveals what we're missing. Fact 72. The film inspired real-world activism, with environmental groups adopting Gnostics imagery, protesters painting their faces blue, indigenous rights movements finding new vocabulary in Avatar's story. The Dongria Khan tribe in India, fighting mining companies threatening their sacred mountain, explicitly compared their struggle to the Gnostics, and international attention helped them win. In Ecuador, rainforest defenders invoked Pandora when opposing oil drilling. Avatar gave people a shared reference point, a story that made abstract concepts concrete. Suddenly, everyone understood what it means when home is threatened. Fact 73. James Cameron announced sequels almost immediately. Not just one, but 4 more films, an unprecedented commitment spanning decades of production. The first sequel, Avatar: The Way of Water, wouldn't arrive until December 2022, 13 years after the original. 13 years of waiting, wondering, hoping. Cameron again refused to rush, insisted on developing new underwater motion capture technology, on crafting stories worthy of the world he'd created. This long view, planning stories that will take 20 years to tell completely, reflects Cameron's understanding that some narratives require patience, that world building of this depth cannot be hurried. He's creating a mythology in real time, asking audiences to grow with these stories across decades, to let them become part of the landscape of our lives. Fact 74. The second film introduces us to the Metkayina, reef-dwelling Nausicaa who've adapted to ocean life. Their bodies are broader, their tails stronger for swimming, their hands slightly webbed. They ride creatures through underwater forests of coral and kelp, hold their breath for extraordinary lengths, find peace in depths where forest Nausicaa would drown. This expansion of Pandora's cultures shows us that even within one species on one moon, diversity flourishes. Different environments creating different peoples, each perfectly suited to their home, each carrying unique wisdom. The reef Nausicaa understand water the way forest Nausicaa understand trees, and neither is superior, just different expressions of the same fundamental connection to place. We are all indigenous to somewhere. The tragedy is when we forget where. Fact 75. Jake and Neytiri's children in the sequels, biological and adopted, represent new possibilities. They've never known Earth, never been human. They're fully Nausicaa, yet they carry Jake's stories, his memories of another world. One child, a human boy named Spider who grew up on Pandora, can't use an avatar. He wears a breathing mask constantly, forever an outsider despite knowing no other home. These children navigate identity in ways their parents couldn't imagine, belonging and not belonging simultaneously, bridges between worlds they didn't choose to connect. They remind us that the consequences of our choices extend beyond ourselves, that children inherit both the beauty and the complications of the worlds we create. Fact 76. The Way of Water explores themes of family, specifically what it means to protect those you love even when protection requires sacrifice. Jake, now a father, must balance his warrior instincts with parental responsibility. The film asks, when does standing and fighting become selfish if it endangers your children? When does running away become wisdom rather than cowardice? These questions have no easy answers, and the film honors that complexity. Parenthood transforms us, makes us vulnerable in new ways, forces us to calculate risks differently when small lives depend on our choices. Jake's journey from solitary warrior to father trying to keep his family safe reflects the universal transformation from self-focus to other-focus that defines mature love. Fact 77. The Tulkun, massive, intelligent whale-like creatures in the sequel, demonstrate Pandora's commitment to showing non-human intelligence worthy of respect. These beings have language, culture, memory, philosophy. They're hunted by humans for a substance in their brains that stops aging, reducing magnificent conscious beings to mere resources once again. The Tulkun story mirrors our world's whaling history, how we nearly drove these ancient, intelligent creatures to extinction for oil and bone. but it also offers hope. The Metkayina revere the Tulkun, have learned their songs, made bonds that span lifetimes. It's possible to live alongside other intelligences with respect rather than exploitation. We simply have to choose to see them as kin rather than commodity. Fact 78. Visually, the underwater sequences in The Way of Water required innovation beyond even the original film. Actors learned to freedive, holding their breath for minutes at a time, performing underwater while maintaining emotional presence. The youngest cast members trained for months, becoming comfortable in depths that would terrify most people. This physical commitment, actors actually experiencing something analogous to their character's world, adds authenticity no amount of visual effects alone could achieve. You can see in their faces that they know what water pressure feels like, what it means to trust your body in an alien element. Sometimes the best way to portray another world convincingly is to find its equivalent in our own and actually live it. Fact 79. The Avatar films have revitalized 3D cinema repeatedly. After the original, every studio rushed to convert films to 3D, most poorly. But Cameron's sequels remind audiences what 3D can be when used with intention. Not spectacle for its own sake, but depth that serves storytelling, that creates presence. As 3D faded from theaters again, The Way of Water brought audiences back, proving that technology, when wielded with artistry, never truly becomes obsolete. It simply waits for artists who understand its potential. Cameron treats 3D not as gimmick, but as language, another tool for creating worlds that feel tangible, spaces you inhabit rather than merely observe. Fact 80. Beyond the films themselves, Avatar has spawned theme park attractions, video games, books, comics, an entire ecosystem of stories expanding Pandora's borders. Pandora. The world of Avatar at Disney's Animal Kingdom lets visitors walk through a bioluminescent forest, ride a banshee in flight simulation, stand beneath floating mountains. These physical spaces blur the line between fiction and experience, allowing people to actually visit Pandora in a way, to feel its wind and mist, to hear its sounds, to briefly escape Earth and dwell in the dream made partially real. This expansion from screen to space recognizes that some stories create such powerful longing that people need more than viewing. They need visiting, touching, momentarily inhabiting. The story becomes place, and place becomes pilgrimage. 80 facts behind us now, and you've traveled from Pandora's creation through its expansion, from first dream to franchise, from story to world. Your body has surrendered completely to rest. Your mind floats in that space between thought and dream where everything connects. 40 facts remain, but they feel like distant stars now, points of light in an infinite dark. Rest here, let go, and trust the story to carry you the rest of the way home. And now we turn inward, exploring the smaller details, the intricate threads that weave Pandora's tapestry into something that feels alive. Fact 81. The Nausics language contains sounds that don't exist in English, clicks, aspirations, tonal variations that change meaning. Dr. Paul Frommer built the language with internal consistency, so that Nausics words for related concepts share linguistic roots. The word for "I" connects to the word for "see," which connects to understanding, which connects to the soul. Language shapes thought, and the Nausics language embeds connection into its very structure. You cannot speak Nausics without acknowledging relationship, without placing yourself in context with others. Every pronoun, Every verb carries implications of connection that English leaves unsaid. Perhaps this is why learning a new language changes us. We don't just learn new words, but new ways of being, new patterns of thought that existed all along, waiting to be spoken into life. Fact 82. The act of seeing, in Nasik's culture, carries profound weight. Ol Ngati Kami, I see you, means recognizing the other's full being, their complexity, their equal validity. It's the opposite of objectification, of reduction, of treating someone as means rather than end. When we truly see another person, we cannot easily harm them because we've acknowledged their humanity, their personhood, their fundamental similarity to ourselves. The modern world makes it easy to avoid seeing. We scroll past suffering, ignore homeless people on streets, consume products without thinking about the hands that made them. Avatar challenges this blindness, insisting that real connection requires the courage to truly see. And once we see, we become responsible for what we've witnessed. Fact 83. Pandora's ecosystem demonstrates symbiosis at every level. The wood sprites aren't just floating seeds, but extensions of Iwa's consciousness, drawn to significant moments, marking people and places worthy of attention. The dire horse allows riders not to control, but to partner through neural connection. Even the plants respond to touch, withdrawing or opening based on intention. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything participates in conversation. This vision of radical interconnection reflects real ecology, how trees communicate through fungal networks, how flowers and pollinators co-evolved, how removing one species cascades through entire systems. Science increasingly reveals what indigenous cultures have always known, that independence is illusion, that we exist only in relationship, that the web of life holds us whether we acknowledge it or not. Fact 84. The Nasik's concept of time differs fundamentally from human clock time. They mark seasons by blooming cycles, migrations, the position of Polyphemus in the sky. They remember through story and through Iwa's neural network, where memories live perfectly preserved but also interwoven with all other memories, creating understanding that's contextual rather than linear. We humans fragment time into smaller and smaller units, hours, minutes, seconds, trying to control it, own it, spend it efficiently. But the Nasiks suggest time isn't a resource to manage, but a river to inhabit, flowing around us, carrying us whether we struggle or surrender. As you drift towards sleep, you leave clock time behind, entering dream time where past and future collapse into eternal present, where 5 minutes and 5 hours feel identical. Fact 85. The bioluminescence that defines Pandora at night serves as natural communication. Colors shift with mood, intensity changes with health, patterns identify individuals. The Nasiks glow like living constellations, their bodies telling stories to anyone who knows how to read light. Imagine if our emotions were visible, if joy and grief and love and fear manifested as color and glow. We spend so much energy hiding what we feel, presenting carefully constructed facades. The Nasiks have no such option. They wear their inner worlds on their skin. This vulnerability becomes strength because everyone is equally exposed, equally readable. When hiding is impossible, acceptance becomes necessary. Perhaps that's the secret to their harmony. Not absence of conflict, but inability to pretend it doesn't exist. Fact 86. The Omaticea clan's daily life, glimpsed in quiet moments, shows routines that ground the spectacular. They weave baskets, prepare food, teach children, tell stories, laugh together. These mundane activities matter as much as the battles and flights, maybe more. They remind us that a good life isn't constant excitement, but meaningful routine. Simple pleasures repeated until they become sacred through repetition. Neytiri teaching Jake to weave is as important as teaching him to ride. Both are ways of belonging, of participating in the communal life that makes individuals into a people. We often dismiss the ordinary, chasing extraordinary experiences, forgetting that contentment lives in the daily rhythms, the small rituals, the unglamorous work of maintaining relationship and place. Fact 87. Music permeates Nasik's culture. Work songs, hunting songs, mourning songs, celebration songs. Every significant action has its soundtrack, its rhythm that coordinates bodies and focuses intention. They sing to their mounts, to their weapons, to the forest itself. Song makes solitary action communal. Even alone, a Nasik singing connects to everyone who's ever sung that song, to the tradition flowing through them. We've lost much of this in modern life. Work happens in silence or to recorded music, disconnected from our bodies and from others. But singing together synchronizes heartbeats, breathing, neural activity. It literally makes us one organism momentarily. The Nasiks understand what we're rediscovering, that music isn't entertainment but technology for creating connection, for remembering we're not alone. Fact 88. The Nasiks' relationship with death reflects their understanding of Iwa. When someone dies, their consciousness, their memories, their essential self joins the network. Death isn't ending but transformation, individual becoming collective, separate voice joining the eternal chorus. This makes grief different, not absence but presence in new form, not gone but changed, accessible differently. They mourn the loss of physical presence, of individual expression, but they don't fear oblivion because oblivion is impossible. Everything returns to Iwa, and Iwa forgets nothing. Whether this is literally true or beautiful metaphor doesn't matter. What matters is how it shapes their living. When death isn't annihilation, life becomes less desperate, less grasping. You can afford to be generous, patient, present, because you're not racing against an ending but participating in something eternal. Fact 89. Jake's video logs throughout the film serve as confession, therapy, self-reflection. Talking to the camera, he processes what's happening to him, works through his changing loyalties, witnesses his own transformation. These moments of self-awareness distinguish him from characters who simply act without reflection. Jake watches himself changing and allows it, consciously choosing to let Pandora reshape him. This metacognition, thinking about thinking, observing ourselves observe, may be uniquely human, or at least uniquely conscious. It's what allows change beyond mere adaptation. We can notice our patterns and choose differently. Jake doesn't just become Nasiks through circumstance. He participates in his own transformation, making it intentional rather than accidental. Perhaps all real change requires this. Witnessing ourselves with compassion while choosing to become someone new. Fact 90. The film's final image, Jake's avatar eyes opening, golden and alive, represents rebirth, new life beginning as old life ends. It's a beginning disguised as conclusion, a promise that the story continues beyond the frame. We don't see what happens next, we trust it into being. This open-endedness mirrors life itself. We never reach final resolution, never arrive at perfect completion. Every ending opens into new beginning. Every closure reveals new questions. Jake's journey doesn't finish when he becomes Nausicaa. That's when it truly starts. All the suffering, all the conflict, all the growth was merely preparation for a life we'll never see, happening in the vast space beyond the story. And perhaps that's the most honest way to end. Not with everything resolved, but with everything possible, with a character finally ready to live the life they've been preparing for all along. 90 facts now behind you, and the journey approaches completion. Your body rests so deeply now that you've almost forgotten it. Your mind drifts in that borderless space where self dissolves into everything, where Pandora and dream and memory blend into one seamless experience. 30 facts remain, but they feel less like information and more like whispers, gentle voices guiding you deeper into rest, into peace, into the soft darkness where all stories eventually lead. 91. On Pandora, memories are not stored only in the mind, but in the land itself. The Tree of Souls holds the thoughts, experiences, and emotions of countless generations, suggesting that nothing is ever truly lost, only quietly absorbed into something larger. 92. James Cameron imagined Pandora as a world where technology feels intrusive and nature feels intelligent. This contrast was designed to make viewers subconsciously relax when the forest appears and feel tension when machines arrive, guiding emotional rhythm without words. 93. The Nausicaa language was fully constructed with its own grammar and rhythm, designed to sound smooth, flowing, and almost musical. Its softness mirrors the way humans instinctively speak, more gently when calm or tired. 94. Pandora's night skies glow softly rather than brightly, creating a sense of endless depth instead of sharp contrast. This visual choice reduces visual strain and encourages longer, more peaceful viewing, similar to gazing at distant stars before sleep. 95. The bond between the Nausicaa and their world suggests that awareness does not end at the individual. In Avatar, consciousness is shared, layered, and calm, flowing naturally between beings like a quiet current beneath the surface. 96. Avatar's slow, immersive pacing was intentional. Long shots and gentle camera movement allow the brain to settle into a meditative state, making time feel slower and thoughts feel lighter. 97. Pandora's forests respond not with aggression, but with balance. When threatened, nature doesn't rush. It gathers quietly, reminding us that stillness can be powerful without being loud. 98. The connection to Iowa represents a planetary awareness, where every life form contributes to a larger harmony. This idea reflects a deep human desire for unity, especially felt during moments of rest and reflection. 99. Avatar avoids sharp silence. Even in its quietest moments, there is always a soft ambient sound, wind, distant creatures, gentle echoes, mirroring how true silence rarely exists, even when we sleep. 100. At its core, Avatar is not a story about conflict, but about remembering how to listen to nature, to others, and to ourselves, especially in the quiet moments when the world slows down and the mind begins to drift. As this journey gently comes to an end, allow your thoughts to slow even further. There is nothing more to focus on, nothing more to remember. Just the quiet echo of what you've heard, softly fading into rest. If your mind is still wandering, let it wander peacefully. If your body feels heavy, let it sink comfortably into stillness. Everything you need right now is already here. At DreamSleep, every story is designed to unfold slowly, to calm the noise of the day, and to guide you into deeper, more natural sleep. You don't need to stay awake. You don't need to listen closely. Just let the sound remain, and the thoughts drift away. More calming journeys await whenever you return. Until then, rest deeply, breathe slowly, and allow sleep to arrive TLY on its own time. Good night.